werden auf Englisch stattfinden. Es gibt keine Übersetzung, aber machen Sie sich keine Sorgen. Ich glaube, wir alle sprechen ungefähr gleich schlecht Englisch, wir werden das verstehen. Und zwischendurch wird aber unser Schauspieler, Sebastian Arenas, das deutsche Buch, Auszüge aus dem deutschen Buch lesen. Also es ist für alle gesorgt. Jonathan Safran-Foer, before we start talking about your great book, I would like to play a little game with you. It's a psychological game, and I was told that therapists use this game if they want to loosen up their patients. That would be fitting. The game is called Person, Place, Thing. And I will now ask you to name and explain a person, a place, and then a thing that means a lot to you or that is on your mind a lot. So, who's your person?
That's the whole game? That's it?
Wait and see.
But you want me to try to answer it like with my subconscious rather than my conscious mind?
Why do you ask that?
Well, either way, it's my mother. No, I'm just kidding. I would say, well, there are a lot of people that I've been thinking about recently. I think about, I can't even quite utter the words, but the president. Last time I was in Germany for a novel was the day when the US invaded Iraq. And I remember when I would, in advance of a reading, when I would have to come out, I thought, how am I going to be a representative of the United States in front of this audience? And I thought, well, it will never get worse than this. So let's not do that as my answer. This trip, I left on the trip on January 26th, and I'll be home on February 3rd. And it's not an accident. My older son's birthday is the January 25th, and my younger son's birthday is on the 4th. So I've been thinking a lot about birthdays. So I guess those would be the people that I'm thinking about. A place.
Place, right?
Yeah. So I happened to be thinking about this place earlier, not knowing I should say, you said to me in advance, would you like to know what we're going to talk about tonight, that we're going to do this game? And I said I didn't want to know, because I've been in audiences before when I've suspected that everything that was happening was actually bullshit. And I would never want to put somebody else in that position. So I didn't have a premeditated answer. But I had been thinking about a place when I was in my hotel earlier. I'm going to turn 40 at some point. At some point soon. And I've been thinking about where I would want to be. And for some reason my mind keeps going to a place that I've only been to once and that I have no sentimental attachment to at all, which is Big Sur in California. I don't know if anybody's ever been there, but when I went there, and it was almost a place that I went between two other places, I had the strangest thought, which is I would really like to be buried here. And it's a strange thought for a number of reasons. One, who cares where you're buried?
Two, you're not even 40.
But who cares where you're buried? Because I don't believe in an afterlife. I don't believe it matters if anybody visits me. I certainly don't believe that it matters if I have a good view, especially as I'll be underground, so the view doesn't matter. And yet some instinct, something in me knew that I wanted to be there. In the same way that I've known for as long as I can remember that if I could just get myself to an ocean to live, that I would find some kind of primitive peace. I have no idea why. I don't particularly love the water, oddly enough. I'm not a big swimmer, but I've always, there's certain kinds of knowledge that's wound into you, like babies know not to crawl off of a cliff. Really? Nobody has to teach them that. That's evolution spun it into them. Just as they know not to crawl off of a cliff, I have known to crawl toward an ocean. I don't know why, but Big Sur is the place that's on my mind. And then, what was it, a thing?
Yeah, what's your thing?
What's my thing? Well, I've been thinking a lot about things generally, and the need for things, and the problem with needing things. There's a wonderful quote that I think was Marx, which is the more useful things there are, the more useless people there are. And I've been thinking a lot about how I and many people I know have become tools of our tools. You know, those things which were created ostensibly to make life easier, to give us more time to pursue the things we actually care about, end up requiring our attention. And you know, I have to get back to return some emails. I have all these texts to deal with. I have things to read that I never exactly wanted to read and don't exactly care about, but feel drawn to in a way that is maybe the opposite of how I feel drawn to the ocean. In a way, it's maybe the exact opposite. You know, an ocean offers nothing. It doesn't facilitate anything. It's useless in the sense of getting something accomplished. But something in people is drawn to the ocean, just as something in people is drawn to a night sky. I don't believe there's anybody in this audience or anywhere who's indifferent to those experiences. And yet we find ourselves more and more acting as if we were drawn to screens. And I think feeling more and more alienated from just our primitive needs, the things that have been true about us since before we were born. And I've felt inside of me a growing resistance to things and to a kind of consumerism that is, I know, not exclusively American, but America is so powerfully oriented around having more things.
Just quickly, one question. How do you deal with your smartphone addiction? How is that for you?
Well, I didn't say I had an addiction, but I probably did, in other words. First of all, I try to acknowledge, because it's an embarrassing thing to acknowledge, or to feel shameful. In part because I think we all know how against our better instincts it is. You know, nobody is going to be on their deathbed and say, I wish I had checked email just a little bit more. I wish I had been on the internet just a little bit more. And there's a certain very deep kind of shame in imagining yourself forward to your deathbed, to the things that you'll regret. I think it's the deepest kind of shame we can experience. It's deeper than bodily shame. So I try to acknowledge it, talk about it with people. I have little tricks in my daily life, like, you know, there are programs you can have on your computer that disable the internet, and I do that when I write. I think that there's certain, I guess you could say, addictions or drives that people have that we really can't expect ourselves to manage on our own, because if we could, they wouldn't be problematic. And a lot of us kind of half-heartedly say, I wish I spent a little bit less time with my computer, forgetting, first of all, that, you know, it literally activates chemicals in our brain that are like a drug, literally. And also that these massive corporations are employing hundreds of extremely well-educated psychologists, social psychologists, whose job that they get paid very well for is to keep us on these screens. And so it's an unfair game. You know, we are the suckers. It's as if one of us could compete with however many hundreds or thousands of those people who have spent their lives thinking about how to capture suckers like us. So I find that increments don't really work. I have to find a way to turn it off, leave it to the side, and kind of what we say in America is cold turkey.
Okay, let's move on to your book. I know that your main character, Jacob Bloch, also struggles with smartphones, but let's start off, but maybe if you could read